4 minutes left. Three minutes left. Two minutes left. One minute left. Seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Africa Institute for Entrepreneurship's webinar today. Today, we'll be discussing what is the future of drones in South Africa and beyond. I'd like to quickly introduce, just give a background on AIfE. The Africa Institute for Entrepreneurship is a nonprofit research and thought leadership organization, and we were established to focus on entrepreneurship opportunities in new industries and technologies. The vision of AIfE is to be a premier institute for independent entrepreneurship research in Africa and develop long-term relationships and ecosystems that provide thought leadership to and to ignite opportunities in entrepreneurship. I'd like to introduce my wonderful list of panelists today. Today, and myself, sorry, I am Paulo Coelho, and I'm the facilitator of today's webinar. I'm a board member of the Africa Institute for Entrepreneurship, and I'm the CEO of Foxglove Digital in Namibia. It's a small country just above South Africa. And joining me today, I have Tamiko Sher. She's one of our speakers, and she's the co-founder of AIfE and the executive director. We have Keith Mahleho. He is one of the speakers. He's from ICAO, and he'll be discussing RPAS. And he also is recently completed his thesis in unmanned aircraft traffic management system, which is UTM. We're also joined by Ian Keeley. He's one of our panelists. He is the CEO of Drone Consultants. He is currently in Ireland, and he's a drone expert. We have Dr. Debbie Hewitt. She is an ecosystem ecologist at Ezemvelo in KwaZulu-Natal. And then we have Zukile Makhalali, and he's the CEO of Waterm. I'd like to welcome everybody. Before we get started, we will have a quick video that will show everybody AIfE's drone video. So Nolene, if you don't mind, you can play that for us now. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Nolene. Watching that video again, I'm reminded that the future really is a lot faster than we all believe it is, and we need to be at the forefront of this technology. I would also like to quickly introduce our technical team that's with us today. We have Andy Lohabane, and Vinny Zoliza. So we'd like to thank them for running around behind the scenes and making everything possible. I'd also like to inform all of our guests and participants that you can post your questions in the chat, and we'll have those questions at the end of the session, where we'll have a bit of a Q&A and we can have an open discussion about everything that was discussed today. Right, moving forward, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, our first speaker for the day, Ms. Tamiko Sher. She is the Executive Director and co-founder of AIfE, and she will be discussing the future of drones in Southern Africa and beyond, and that is based on the 2021-2022 drone industry publication in Southern Africa. So Tamiko, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much, Paulo. And I also just want to say thank you to Nolene from Ladybugs and Mpo, who are part of our team. It takes a village to make these things happen, and thank you to everyone. Okay, so we're going to go into the presentation now, where we're going to talk about the future of drones in South Africa. And as Paulo indicated, AIfE, we work in 5 different areas. We are a nonprofit research and thought leadership organization focused on tech, new industries. We work in research, training of young researchers, thought leadership, ecosystem facilitation, publications and case studies, and entrepreneurship initiatives. So people often ask us, well, why did you start with drones? So if you are a convert, I don't need to explain to you, but $43 billion US. And there are a lot of numbers out there, but this is the one that we are the most comfortable with. We see that the potential for this industry is to be a major economic driver and create jobs in South Africa. And we looked at 3 different areas when we started our research. The first was to develop a comprehensive drone ecosystem publication. The second was really to unpack the value chain and understand how this unfolds. And then the third was really to capture the existing state of the drone industry in South Africa. The research was 41 interviews. We've got 2 of our interviewees here today. And today we're really focusing on chapter 5, which is the future of the unmanned aviation industry. Okay, so those of you who are converts, again, when I come out as a researcher and tell you the drone industry is going to change the world, I think those of you who are in the industry absolutely are committed to this. And those of you who are new to the industry, we really believe that the drone industry is going to change how we move, how we operate. It's going to help bridge areas of socioeconomic divide. It's going to make new jobs. It's going to create new businesses. It's going to open up areas that none of us can even imagine. As you saw in the video, there's lots of different permutations that I didn't even know when we started this project. So when you look around the world and you think of technology, if all of us who saw Steve Jobs all those years ago pull that iPhone out and say, this is going to change the world, we all thought, yeah, right. None of us imagined that 20 or so years later, that iPhone, that phone that we each hold, is a computer in our hands. So those of you who are new to the drone industry, they also go by unmanned aviation vehicles, and there's 4 pages of glossary when you download the study, which is in the chat. So essentially, a drone is a flying robot. So you can fly it either remote control, those of you who are pilots already know this, or you can do it through software controlled flight. But what's fascinating about drones is that they range the gamut of a tiny little 14-gram drone that you can put in your hand to these enormous autonomous aerial vehicles, which Keith Malejo will speak more about later. And I think what's really fascinating about this is someone just sent me a clip the other day of these tiny little mini drones that are turned into robots. They're only this big, and they are flying through warehouses, reading stock levels in warehouses. So the technology is evolving incredibly fast in this industry. So this is Irvin Pignani. He's the chair of the Drone Council. And I'm going to share with you some of the quotes from the different experts. So, and I really love this because when we did this research and interviewed 48 different people, there's a lot of cowboys out there. This is exciting. people who love to go into brand new industries, love to be disruptors. They get excited by this. And remember, the technology is changing 10 times faster than the regulators can keep up with. And there's a natural tension going on. And this is not just South Africa, but around the world between the innovators and the regulators. But specifically, when you look at South Africa, you can say that we are in crawling stage, and a lot of the countries in the world are in toddler stage. And you're going to hear, for example, Ian Kiley from Ireland talking about what he's doing in Europe as well. So we're going into first level drones or first generation, and the rest of the world is in sixth and seventh, and we have some catching up to do. So what did we find? We found 4 key findings in our study. The first was South Africa was the leader. When in 2015, we were the first out the door, ICAO, Part 101, 2015, the International Civil Aviation Authorities, but we're not capitalizing on this. We haven't moved since then. And others like Rwanda and other countries are moving ahead of us. The second thing is the drone industry is really, really complex. I've been in aviation for 26 years. I have a commercial pilot's license and an instrument rating. And even me, as we say in South Africa, I was gobsmacked how complex the industry is, and it really requires its own expertise. This is not an industry you can go in and pick up a book and say, okay, I've read one book, I understand the industry, I'm there. You really do have to invest in it. And what's interesting is the biggest opportunities are not the drones themselves, but the data collection and the offshoots. And I will speak a bit more about this. And the industry is a very unique juncture, and that's not only South Africa, but probably all around the world. We're on the cusp of some incredible innovations. So this is also fascinating that an industry is this young. You're only talking about what, 6, 7, if you're lucky, maybe 10 years old. This is an opportunity to start from ground zero and level the playing field. So people say to me, what industries is drones applicable for? And my answer to you is, what industry is drones not applicable for? So if you look on the left side on the industry verticals, energy, construction, mining, information, real estate, insurance, professional service, safety and security. The list is endless. And then if you go across the top on the applied drone-based methods per industry, mapping and surveying, inspection, photography and filming, detection, delivery, spraying and seeding. And if you go across the bottom where there's that little asterisk, broadcasting, sensing, transmitting, electromagnetic surveying, illumination, measuring. I think the astonishing thing about this industry is the breadth of industries that it's applicable for. And if you're looking at this and thinking, oh, the numbers look a bit big, there's too many numbers. Look at the bolded ones, look at the colored ones. Okay, if I look at, for example, arts and recreation, 60% photography and filming. Just imagine you're in a concert and you're at the back and you can't see very well. And 5 drones are flying around, capturing all different levels of video footage so you can get a different view. This brings a whole new level to entertainment. Think about agriculture, crop spraying, how much more precise you can be and how much less wastage there is of materials. Look, you saw medical supplies, medical blood supplies to rural areas. It's quite phenomenal when you start unpacking and looking at all these different opportunities. So this is Steve Carver. He runs a fantastic number of companies. One is called YouCanGrow.earth. And I think what's really, people say, well, what do I really need? What you really need is to be very curious. And you really need what he calls the can-do attitude. And it's really important because so much of the potential lies on the data side, is that you not only can take data, but you can work out how to get the insights from it. And some of our panelists today will talk a little bit more about work they're doing, but how can you take the data from all these different sensors and the cameras and apply it and overlay it and get very rich insights? So he says, it's not really a drone business, it's an information and insights business. So I just want to make sure I didn't miss a page. Okay, so people ask, it's not just the drones themselves, it's the offshoots. So if you look at the data, 2026, this is drone EII, we found them to be one of the most credible sources. 79.3% of the market will be in services. Now that is phenomenal. Everyone thinks when they think of drones, they think, oh, the drones are flying around. Oh, I get a pilot. Oh, I start a company. No, we're saying the services. Now this could be your internal drone operations. It could be your system integration. It could be engineering, advisory, education. You could be a lawyer out there becoming an expert on drones. You could be insurance. You could be in financial services. You could be in any number of things. But this is really where the huge opportunity is. And that doesn't mean that there's not the hardware at 16.4% and software at 4.3%, but the biggest opportunity is in the services for this industry. So this is Apiwe Adams. He's the CEO of Omnipresent and CEO of the ICT Youth Council. He's an amazing entrepreneur. He got in drones very early. So he sees telecommunications, he sees high altitude platform systems, broadband, cybersecurity, computer vision, edge computing. And then he says, we're going to have to address latency issues, quantum key distribution. And his big question, which is something we all really need to ask ourselves, what are we doing to build the skill sets for these technologies for the future? So there are a few success stories around Africa and beyond, and I'll just give you a snippet of what's going on. So UDS was the first in at the door in terms of getting its registration as a commercial license. They sold for R500 million to Bidvest. I think you've all heard of, anyone who's been in drones at all knows about Zipline. They partnered with the Rwandan government. They're getting millions in rands in funding and VC funding. Aerobotics is local 6, and this is fascinating because I don't think the CAA even knows who Aerobotics is. They're not a registered drone company. They're an information and data analytics company that uses drones as a tool. And I think their last tranche of funding was $17 million from NASPERS. Paxis, we interviewed Tim Weiss. He is one of 6 sugarcane farmers who got together, and they now have the DJI license for crop spraying for drones throughout the whole of Africa. And what's fascinating, if think about KwaZulu-Natal, and those of you who are from South Africa know it's a very hilly area like this. So he said, as a farmer, I can send drones where a tractor can't go. So I send a drone into these marginalized little hilltop areas. And now I can see what the water needs are, what the seeds needs are, what the fertilization needs are. And it's changing the value of the real estate. So these are the kind of offshoots that are coming out of the drone industry. And then we have Alti down in the Western Cape, building drones. DJI is watching them. They don't sell a single one in this country, which I think is really sad. And then we have Inspire Africa, who's using drones as tools for education, for STEAM skills. So we've got great success stories. How do we leverage them? How do we create the next generation of success stories? And now I'm going to ask Vinny to start to get ready to spool this up. I'm going to take you behind the scenes and just give you a short snippet of what researchers go through. And we're going to share with you a Miro collaboration map, how we took our interviews and codified them and iterated them. And then we turned that into a mind map. So Vinny, are you ready to spool up?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm going to stop my share. So I'm waiting for Vinny to spool up. So when you're a researcher like we are, so here we are. So what I'm going to share with you, can everyone see the screen? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so let's start on the top. Okay, so researchers, we do a lot of behind the scenes work that when you get that beautiful publication, you don't see. So let me just show you one example. Every single one of these interviews, we codify and we transcribe and codify. I'm going to just show you one. This is Dr. Jonathan Lowe. He is the former CEO of the South African National Blood Service. So we said to Jonathan, which we said to everybody who we interviewed, what do you think the future is and what do you think the opportunities are? Now, let me just show you one person. Bespoke cooling fans for cold transport. CAA capturing best practices. Real-time snake venom transport for rural areas. Test sites for drones. Real-time transponder tracking for rural areas. Drone processes for NPOs. Bespoke drone parts for medical transport. Temperature controlled. Every single one of these, if you're an entrepreneur, is a business opportunity. So what I just want to highlight to you is this was the first part of our process. Let's go to the next part of the process. So you can see there are 41 of these. And we had a group of 25 people, including 4 fantastic young people from the Mzansi Aerospace Group. And then we go to the next section, and this is where we have what's called affinity mapping. So this is where we group each one of these into themes. And then we start to, this is all the little bugs are flying around just like little drones around the screen, sharing, taking all these little stickies and they're moving under these different categories. So you have mining, software, legislation, and then we start grouping and looking for themes. And then we go to the next part. And then you can see there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, which we have consolidated. And then we go to our section over here, which Vinny is taking you through. So this is how we navigate the map. And then you can see where we have the challenging orthodoxies box. This is where we look at our 4 different areas. We look at what are the orthodoxies? What are the things that we're challenging in this system? What are we doing to leverage our resources that South Africa has? How are we harnessing our trends? How are we understanding the needs that are out there? And then this is sort of how we unpack this different piece. So if you just go scroll down, so one of the biggest needs that comes across the board is, I'm not sure how to start. So this is what a lot of people say, where do I get resources? Where do I get information? And then if you look at the pink boxes, those are the big key questions that we ask. So the first question you ask is to say, I'm not sure what skills I need. And then we break that down into all the different areas. And then you have another question over here. I'm not sure what support is available. Who can help me with this? Where can I get assistance? And what are my barriers to get funding in this? So that's the first part of this. And then we go to a section called the problem statement. So we take these 4 different areas, and if we can go up on the map, Vinny, up to the problem statement. Then we say, what are the biggest problems that we're looking at in the industry? So then you start asking your future questions. What is this industry going to look like in 20 or 30 years? Can we go to the right, Vinny? What support is available to the people who are entering the industry? And how will this industry affect entrepreneurship in South Africa? And then we take all of this information here, we go back into our data from all the different interviews, and we create what I call a lung. So this is all the data that's been grouped together in a lung. And if you're asking why I didn't take this and break it down, it's about a 50 or 100-page presentation. But I'm just going to give you a snippet today because we're going to do a deeper dive on this in Q1 and share information on this particular information. So Vinny's going to show, there's the middle is the drone industry. And if we just go and look at the future uses, and you're going to see Keith Malejo specifically talking about this today, is you're going to be looking at the future uses. He's going to talk to you today about UTM. So if you just look, and this is not us, this is all the interviewees. Drone deliveries, broadband beaming drones, satellites coming lower, drones going higher, long distance flying drones, bigger payloads, air taxis, drone IDs, fully autonomous operations, 3D printed drones, machine learning, BV loss, beyond visual line of sight, high quality multispectral solutions. It goes on and on and on. So I'm just trying to show you, if we go back into the overall lung, is that when you unpack drones, there's an immense level of complexity. But if you are an entrepreneur out there saying, I want to get into this industry, there are so many different types of opportunities that you can get there. So thank you, Vinny. I'm going to go back and share my screen again, if you can unshare. So it was immensely exciting for us to look at all these opportunities. And that is what a drone industry mind map will look like when we go into Q1. So when we look back at the publication, chapter 5 was really about drones can solve wicked problems. So you saw in the video, humanitarian aid, you saw conservation, you saw them saving lives. Just think 2 months ago when we had the riots in KwaZulu-Natal, just think if we'd had drones to help us for those disrupted supply chains, of how much we could have avoided a lot of the damage that was done. Drones being such a new industry offers us an opportunity for socioeconomic inclusion. I've mentioned mechanization with the mini flying robots, on-demand lifestyle. Thanks to Ian Kiley, we got that footage from Monash, and they're not only doing food deliveries, they're doing medical deliveries as well. You've got commercial scaling challenges, emergency supply chains, and think about if government could use drones for auditing. You could audit bridges. You could audit the scope out the different lands. You could build 1,000 township houses and do the inspection by drone. And most of all, data collection and analysis, as you saw in the stats. So this is, here, Ian, you're going to get a chance to speak a bit later. But I think what's really fascinating about what he said is there's something for everybody in this industry. As you saw in our mind map, we need all these multiple skill sets. And Ian will talk more about his journey later, but he started as a small consultancy firm, and today he shared some stuff behind the scenes that I don't think I'm at liberty to share, but now he's doing 50% space and 50% drone work. And that just shows you the scope of what this industry offers. So the future of the drones is going to be more than tech. And I think this is really, really important because people think, oh my God, tech is so sexy, it's so exciting. What we really need more than anything is people. We need skills. We need what we call new collar jobs. So this is between blue collar and white collar, and you don't need to have full degrees to be in a new collar job. We write more about it in the study. We need innovation. We need people who are going to come in and support and provide funding. We need that leadership. And with that leadership, and you're going to see people like Keith talking about legislative frameworks that are coming on board. You can see the benefits for conservation and humanitarian needs. Really, really important. We must get this inclusion right. This is our chance of brand new industry. We need socioeconomic impact. We need women, youth, small businesses, and people with disabilities. Last week, we did a talk under Women in Drones Africa. We had a video of a quadriplegic pilot and instructor flying a drone. This is where this industry can take people. We need the investment. This is an aviation industry. We need the aviation industry on board with this. We need those partners. We need those collaborations. And this is a drone tech era. We have fintech, we have ed tech, we have health tech. We are now going into drone tech, and we need the people and all the other elements of the ecosystem to come together to make it work. So this is my last slide. This is Andile Velakazi, who kindly participated in our mind map. And he says, drones are revolutionizing our lives. It's going to help him realize his dreams. He is so excited. He can't wait to be part of this change. And we at AIfE, this is why we are so excited and so dedicated to assisting the drone industry in its growth, and that we see people like Andile Vilakazi and our panelists who are all here today, growing this industry, creating jobs, making an opportunity for new business and for economic growth for the future. And thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Tamika. I would like to say that drones have become more than just cool looking flying objects. They are now one of the world's most publicized and intriguing technologies. So we really need to capitalize on that. And one of the comments that we got from Asa, which I thought was also quite cute, she said, well put, Tamiko, drones are essentially the modern day Swiss Army knife. I thought that was very cute. The real value of drones lie in their ability to quickly and efficiently gather and analyze information. So that is actually very important. And it's very true what you said, Tamiko. But let's proceed. And I would like to remind everyone to just post your questions in the chat on the side. We will list all of them and then discuss them at the end. And we'll move on to our next speaker, which is Keith Malejo from ICAO RPAS. And he will be discussing what will UTM mean in South Africa's airspace in the future. Keith, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Paulo. And first of all, thank you to everybody attending the session. Thank you for your time. I, however, must make a disclaimer. I have a newborn in the house. So if you hear screams and whatsoever, please pardon me. There's also a garden service around, so I do apologize for that. It will disturb my presentation. So Tamiko has spoken a lot, and there's still a lot to be spoken of. And that's the fascinating thing about drones. Drones, I can guarantee you that each and every day there is a talk like this on drones. And that is just the excitement. If you're not inquisitive, you wouldn't be part of this session, right? And that's a nice thing. So the world is behind the starting line, and here's a new industry opening its doors to everybody, where everybody can thrive. And what Ian Kiley said, there is a place for everybody in this ecosystem. So my presentation today, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be focusing on what I then term the UTM, unmanned aerial system traffic management, and what that will mean for South Africa's airspace in the future. Okay, let's see, okay. So have you ever wondered how planes actually fly safely, orderly, and expeditiously? Has anybody wondered that? Because you think about planes and you're thinking, wow, it's really a beautiful thing that's in the air, but how do they actually do it? And that is the crux of the conversation. So I like giving a bit of background on the current systems and what is happening and what the future then entails for us. How planes actually fly, they fly through a system called the air traffic management system. Air traffic management system is a combination of air traffic services, airspace management, and air traffic flow management. And the purpose for this whole system is purely that to make sure that there's safe, orderly, expeditious flow of air traffic. So the type of services you get, which are very basic from an air traffic management system, is that you get separation between the two aircrafts to make sure that they don't fly into each other, whether airborne or on the ground. On the ground, you must remember at the airport, there's also vehicles running around, buses and shuttles. So you want to keep safe distance from that. You also get flight information, which is basic services, which focuses on weather information and airport conditions. Those who are in aviation would know that you want to know the conditions of the airfield that you fly into. Are the runways serviceable? Are the lights working? Are they not? So that sort of service you get from this air traffic management system. Search and rescue, should there be a crash or whatever, you want to know where the crash is and so forth, and then rescue then sent out. Congestion management, which is then where you look at the relief of traffic in a certain area, especially in your terminal areas. There's lots of aircrafts coming in to land. So you want to manage that very effectively. And that's where it comes in. The basic elements of an ATM is communication, navigation, surveillance, and flight. I won't go into the nuts and bolts of it, but you then get the idea that you need to communicate, you need to navigate, which is direct. You need to then have a picture of what you're actually directing, and you need some sort of flight, which is then the information and weather services, the aeronautical fixed telecommunication network. And that's how it is. That is conventionally how we then got this industry called aviation to becoming the safest transport industry in the whole world, right? When you talk about transport, safest mode of transport, it will be aviation. So now, to address the big elephant in the room is that how do we then ensure that drones also follow suit, that they actually fly similar to aircraft safely, orderly, and expeditiously, right? So the current scene in South Africa at the moment, and especially when we talk about controlled airspace, what then happens is that flying, if you say you want to fly in the Joburg terminal or the Oliver Tambo airport area, you then, as a drone operator, you have to then contact the Central Airspace Management Unit, which is part of ATNS Air Traffic Navigation Services and ANSP. They will then contact the Air Traffic Services Unit, which in this case will be the tower, and also contact the CAA to let them know that this drone will be flying in this area at this altitude at this time. Are you guys happy? And then the final grant will then come from the air traffic service unit, which is the tower, saying, we are happy, we can then allow this sort of flying at this time and so forth. But then the biggest thing is this procedure or system put in place currently good enough for the future, right? I say no. I say no, given the pace and rate that drones or the drone industry is growing at. I say no, purely because of the rate. Think about an air traffic controller controlling 1,000 drones, and on top of that, still having to control 10 aircrafts. I mean, it's humanly impossible, right? The workload is incredible for ATCs. So what is then proposed? And that is where the UTM that comes in, right? A UTM has not been conventionally defined. You get different definition of a UTM. Paul Estra, who's the head of UTM at Airbus, was filmed saying that it's digitization of air traffic services, right? And ICAO, which then goes further to say this is not a official definition of a UTM, describes a UTM as a subset, as a ATM subset that ensures safe, economical, and efficient management of drones. Sandro, who's also a student, knows that a UTM is a system of systems, right? And there's different definitions to UTM and so forth. The nice thing about a UTM is that you can define it in any way you like. What ICAO made very clear from the get-go was that a UTM is a domestic product. So we'll leave it to the states to then say, define a UTM however way you want. There's a very good video that I want to share with you guys where they actually describe what a UTM is. It's Airbus. I think it's a good definition and it will somehow give some sort of indication. If you then just allow me to then play the video for 2 minutes and then I'll get back to the presentation.
There's no sound, Keith. Maybe turn up the volume.
So is there still no sound?
I don't know if anyone else is struggling, but I don't hear. Yeah, we can't hear. Share the video.
Well, you
with
need
sound.
to share screen to say that audio is enabled when you're sharing screen, Keith. So
Okay.
stop, reshare.
Yeah, no, I missed the share sound. Perfect.
And paper means over the last.
There we go.
UTM is unmanned traffic management, and what that really means is it's the digitization of the air traffic services that have been provided through voice and paper means over the last 30 to 50 years.
If we're looking at a future where anyone can go and order a flying taxi ride or a delivery by drone to their house, instead of having 100 aircraft over a city at a time, we're going to have thousands. And without something such as UTM to coordinate and ensure that's safe, it's not going to get off the ground.
Air traffic management has been very stable for that past 50 years. You have an air traffic controller speaking to a pilot in an airplane. This simply just doesn't work when we integrate autonomous vehicles like drones or air taxis. We're going to need to figure out how to communicate from machine to machine.
The key technologies enabling UTM will be around communication, navigation, surveillance, also the new concepts of Internet of Things.
The UTM ecosystem has many different stakeholders, from the regulators to the aircraft manufacturers to the air navigation service providers to policymakers to the pilots that are flying these aircraft today and the operators that will be flying some of the future aircraft.
The first step to achieving clarity in what are the standards and regulations for autonomous systems is that we need to get everybody together and sharing and open and on the same page. We need collaboration across the industry because this problem is bigger than any one company.
The entire aviation industry focuses around taking small steps first, which is very important. By getting small applications in place, we make valuable learnings, we gain a lot of information, we gain feedback, we gain economic information and viability, and all of that will boil together to produce an even better next iteration as we scale up the services, have more aircraft, and have them do more complicated things.
So it's a really exciting time for the industry. It's really just kicking off. We've done a lot of the R&D, but right now is when real UTM services are starting to be implemented.
The system we put in place today and over the next few years will be the system that's in place for decades to come, and it will affect the next generation of people using the air traffic control system.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That is a UTM in a nutshell. I don't know if I'm still audible, but Paulo, please advise if I am.
No, you're still good for time.
Okay. No, I was saying audible.
Yes, you are audible. We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, I just want to get that. And that's it. That's how you actually describe a UTM in a nutshell. So in my take, when I did my studies, that a UTM is a key enabler of what NASA terms advanced air mobility or urban air mobility, which then creates an infrastructure for air taxis, drone deliveries, vertiports, management and monitoring of drones. Without a UTM, if we are to be honest, we can't really achieve all of this. And most people will talk about integration of drones into your normal or conventional airspace. But then how do we do it when we haven't actually drawn studies or lessons to say, this is how drones actually behave in their own space, right? And then we can then configure the conventional airspace, which is the ATM, to then accommodate this sort of behavior without us actually trialing all of this through a UTM. And to be honest, the job opportunities behind it, this is like the back room and everything of, if you think about drones, you think about the back room of it, you're thinking about a UTM, and you think about a UTM, you're thinking about data analysis, you're thinking about the creation of vertiports, you're thinking about air taxis and manufacturing, the monitoring thereof of a UTM. And these are just unconventional jobs at the moment. I heard Tamiko come up with a new term. It was my first time hearing it, the new collar jobs and so forth. And to be honest, you don't need your degrees and all of this. The one thing that you need, though, is that I'm sure of is passion and being innovative. So for the findings that I made from my studies is that 27% of the participants that took part in my study advised that a UTM system is necessary and inevitable, but must be studied first. I'm sure you heard from the video where they said there's no way that we can look into the future if we're not setting up the infrastructure. 73% then said effective collaboration is needed amongst the stakeholders. Even in the video, they highlighted a few stakeholders, from policymakers to operators to OEMs to users to regulators and so forth. So we need that sort of collaboration amongst ourselves. 85% of the participants, my participants were mainly from an aviation background, that is the military, your CAA, Department of Transport, ATNS, and a few operators. They said that the challenge was that the limitation in the job scope and the bureaucracy that then comes with them actually executing their daily functions when it comes to AIfE. To be honest, most people still regard AIfE or drones as a toy, right? And you get these people in aviation sectors that say, I don't want a toy in my airspace. I don't want to fly next to a toy, which is really sad, right? And obviously, if you're given then a role to then execute anything to do with drones, you are then limited. And you can imagine the fast pace and the technology, how fast it changes. To go through the red tape and the bureaucracy doesn't make sense. You need to adapt to technology, and they lacking that willpower. And 100% of my participants said that an AIfE management challenges, AIfE would then be drone management challenges and issues. Like most of the organization have these challenges in order to say, how do we then manage drones? How do we monitor drones and so forth? And then in the end, I then made a recommendation to my study. I then said, department need like research and development departments to be established. Funny enough, you might find that some departments, especially government departments, don't have this department, research and development, which is really the crux of it. Even from the Airbus UTM, what they did is that they did a lot of research and development before then they could then say, we have a final product and here it is. So we also need that lean and agile organizational structures and methodologies to be adapted by government entities to change the trajectory. Technology management plans, policies, and documents for immediate implementation at all departments, and Department of Transport to initiate an awareness campaign on advanced air mobility, encompassing all the technological advances available in aviation, and not only focus on UTM. Obviously, this would be your vertiports, your eVTOLs, your air taxis, and so forth. And that was it. That's my slot for today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I like using the quote by Harry Truman that then goes to say it is amazing what you can actually accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit. And for me, that is my thing in life. It doesn't matter who gets the credit at the end of the day, as long as I'm doing something to effect change. And that's it. Thank you, Paulo, and thanks to everyone.
Thank you very much, Keith. That was very insightful, amazing work that you're doing. I'd like to remind all our attendees and guests that are attending today to please introduce themselves in the chat. You can post your questions, then we'll discuss the questions at the end. Keith touched on a lot of interesting concepts, and the major one being that everyone would need to get together. This problem is just bigger than any one industry or any one person. Keith, thank you so much. Also, just to highlight what you were saying, UTM would be very critical, especially in countries like Nigeria that has notoriously bad traffic. The government is actually looking at implementing drone delivery systems and solutions that would obviously cut down your delivery times and not have more congestion on the roads. So Keith, thank you very much. Keep leading that conversation. We're looking forward to the wonderful things that will come in the future. I believe we're going to move on to the questions for the panelists. And my next question, or the first question, I'd like to address to Ian Keeley, who is the CEO of Drone Consultants in Ireland. Ian, you have been in the drone industry since 2015, and that's quite a long time. And you started the first drone conference in Ireland. And in that year, in 2018, you've also won a European Space Award for satellite navigation, and were listed in the Sunday Business Post as the Hot 100 Startups in 2019. We're all very impressed by all of your feats, Keith, and with the way you're moving into this new technology and marrying the space of drone, marrying up the space in drone technology. Now, we'd like to find out, where do you see the opportunities for the drone industry in the very near future?
Good morning. Thanks for having me along. It's early morning here in Ireland. So where do we see things? Well, we still do a little bit of the services on the ground whereby we're flying the drone. But I think there's going to be jobs in kind of all layers and levels of what we're doing from a technical perspective. I know that the large drone delivery company here, they've just opened another delivery site. They're hiring pilots at the moment, and they're going to be operating under their license. So they're literally taking kids from college and teaching them from scratch. And then those guys manufacture their own drones. And then we were looking at all the software stuff that Tamiko was talking about earlier. I'm just going to switch off my phone here. Sorry, I can hear it invading what we're doing. So I think that we need to attract people from all levels. Like, I have no college education in technology. I just grew into it. I was a caterer for 20 years. I had my own cafe. I got very sick, and I literally started in 2014 from my bed with a toy. I couldn't walk for 8 months, and then I got the shingles. So I literally had lost my business. I was unable to walk and unable to care for myself. And I thought, what am I going to get into here in this industry? What's good for me? So I basically had to learn how to use a laptop and start from scratch. And I was completely technically adverse. My friends laughed at me. They could arguably say I still don't know how to use a laptop properly. So I think that, you know, kids getting into this now, adults getting into it, people with previous business experience, With COVID, a lot of the aviation industry have arrived in to tell us how they're going to do it or how we should be doing it. I think that they maybe need to take a step back and go, well, hang on a minute, what we've already achieved. Something I learned about 3 weeks ago, myself and a few colleagues, we hosted the World Air Taxi Drone Congress in London. And while attending it and hosting it, I got to meet people from all across the world that were working in this space, but particularly focused on air taxi. And I figured out that we're much further along than I thought we were, but we're also much further away from our end goal. So there's all these new potential problems and issues coming out, and there's going to be a lot of jobs for people to go in there and solve those problems.
Thank you very much, Keith. That was very insightful. I believe before we go to the next question for our second panelist, I would like to also put a question out onto the floor. We got one in one of our chats, and this one was quite interesting. This one is from Asa Queensberry, and she asked, what is the current ecosystem surrounding the integration of landing platforms, vertiports, within South Africa? And is it something the government has expressed interest in? She feels indifferent, and she wants to know if anyone is aware of any of the developments of this within the country and outside of the country.
Can I just nip in there before we move to somebody else? Our team, with the support of the European Space Agency, 2 French companies and 2 Polish companies, we're actually building a satellite navigation system and that will have triple redundancy. And we've been fully funded, actually 70% funded. So the whole project is going to work out at about just under 2 million euros, which is quite a lot of money. There are about 20 of us working on it. And the idea is that we'll be able to narrow down the bandwidth using multiple satellite systems that are correcting each other. And then when drones come into land, they'll be correcting themselves from the landing site. And I'd also like to have all the telephone towers fitted with receivers so that the drones in real time will be feeding us telemetry of the accuracy of where they are, so that when we do come into land, the drones will actually be able to make those decisions for themselves.
Wow.
And presumably that will be very important for landing zones, but I presume other people as well on the panel have thoughts on this.
That's very interesting. Thank you, Keith. Would anyone else on the panel like to comment? Maybe from a South African perspective?
Yeah, I'd then come in. It was Ian who just gave you his response, Carlo. It's Keith now. Yeah, definitely there is some sort of appetite, but I'm not sure. Me being in the government entity, I work for the regulator, and I think just recently we were tasked to then run a research based on air taxis. I mean, with air taxis, you're gonna need some sort of vertiports. So I think our research will then encompass such things and the infrastructure thereof. So there is appetite, yeah, that's how far I can take it. Thanks.
Thank you, Keith. Would anyone else like to comment? All right, that's fine. Then we'll move on.
I could add something small to that.
Absolutely.
First of all, I just want to say welcome, Asa, from Japan. We've got quite a few international people. One of the biggest opportunities, Asa, in South Africa is actually, and Keith can probably speak more about this, is pilot sites and air corridors, because currently we have no place for testing. So I know of 5 different people who are creating drones and they have no place to test them. So this is one of our challenges here, is how do we not only create these vertiports, but how do we create testing zones and air corridors where we can test all of this equipment, and of course bring everyone down here like our friend Ian there, who'd like to come to the beautiful South African weather. Thank you.
Ian would like some South African sun.
Actually, Tamiko, I think you've hit on a point there. Testing and creating that space to happen. Like, I live in a very small country. It's very easy to access our Civil Aviation Authority compared to other countries, and they're very open-minded. And I think that you guys have this golden opportunity now that you've done this study. Like, I don't believe that you guys are getting into the industry late. I think that we came from the basement, we're now on the ground floor. Finance is only really getting on board now. The car companies that were kind of looking at us in the aviation, and the aviation manufacturers thought we were joking a few years ago. So you guys are actually coming in when some of the grunt work is done. So maybe this is a golden opportunity for you guys to take the bull by the horns and just start from now. All those manufacturers are looking for testing sites.
Yeah, and then we've received some of the comments that actually stipulated that very ports have been added to the national aviation policy, the review that happened last year. I think that's from Francois, who's in South Africa, and he's also stating that the only challenge is now finding test beds. We need to find areas where we can test some of the software in all of these very ports.
Yeah, we heard this from a lot of the manufacturers, is they make beautiful drones, but where are they going to test them? So, great.
So I think therein lies the challenge and the opportunity at the same time. But we'll move on to our second question for one of our panelists, Dr. Debbie Hewitt. She is the ecosystem ecologist at Ezemwelo in KwaZulu-Natal. Debbie, you are a unique person, and as a conservationist, and drone expert using drones for conservation purposes, how do you see the drone industry contributing to biodiversity and conservation, and where do you see the opportunities in your field in the near future?
So thanks for that, Paulo. It's such an exciting space, really. It's all about the data. So you have your drone and you collect your data. It's what do you do with the data after that? So all your artificial intelligence, your machine learning, your data-driven cloud technologies, that's where the future lies, to automate the processes, automate counting, automate identification of objects in the landscape. And then to follow on from that, it's all about the Internet of Things, or we like to call it technoecology. How do you link the different technologies that you already have? So you have satellites, you've got manned aviation, you've got drones, you've got camera traps. And all of this can be used to enable near-time monitoring. There are other technologies like acoustic devices that can be used for the hearing of harm. So for instance, poaching, if you have a series of acoustic devices spread out across your protected area, they can triangulate down and identify the precise location of a gunshot. Imagine then if you have an autonomous drone or several autonomous drones spread out throughout your protected area, that they're fully autonomous. They can take off by themselves in response to this alert that you get from another technology, maybe even the breaching of a fence line, and can immediately be the first responder on that site to get a lot more information. It's been used, acoustic devices have been used very successfully to listen for chopping down of forests. Again, integrating all of this technology to start answering and giving almost near-time or real-time responses just leverages so much more that you can achieve in the conservation arena. And then there's this amazing advancement in sensor technologies. So for instance, visible light layers that you can use and fix onto your drone, and you can then go and they penetrate water. So you're able to map a seafloor and the topography. So this amazing technology increase not only in your drones and battery life that you can fly for longer, but all of these exciting sensors that give you different kinds of data that are coming out. And then, and I must just preempt this, that maybe this is not possible in all countries due to your civil aviation legislation, but the swarming of drones, using not one drone, but a swarm of drones. And here there are companies in Australia and in North America or Canada that use swarms of drones to go into areas that have been decimated by wildfires or disease, or to revegetate after there's been alien invasive plants and they've been cleared. And you can go in with these swarms of drones and they carry a hopper filled with seeds of different kinds of trees. And you can go in and revegetate an area. The hoppers can carry up to 25.8 kgs of seed. And often these areas are in more inaccessible areas like mountainous areas. And it would take days for people to go in and hike up and have to plant those seeds manually. And now using pneumatic air drills from the drone, it can plant all of these seeds. And then, of course, just education and awareness. One can't protect what you can't see. So the latest TV series, the David Attenborough series on Blue Planet 2, all of that aerial footage was taken from drones. And it's enabled so much more support because people can understand what the issue is. They can see it, and that information has been captured. So there's just so much opportunity in this space, from education and awareness through to technology, through to in devices that you can fit. The Endangered Wildlife Trust, they are a licensed ROC operator in South Africa, and they have developed these devices that they can automatically dispense these bird flappers onto power lines to stop birds flying into power lines. So think about the different kinds of applications with drones to solve real world problems. And it's just so very exciting and so many opportunities out there.
That sounds very exciting, Debbie, and I can see you were very passionate about this. I was actually very interested in what you said. So with the use of audible technology, the drone can converge, or the drones can swarm onto where they feel the incident may have happened based on sound. That is very interesting. Thank you so much.
There could be multiple responses. Sorry, there could be multiple responses. You could have a field team. You could have an aerial team in manned aircraft. You could have people responding in vehicles. It depends on the appropriate response. But I think the key is the integrating all of these different technologies and these different disciplines is what is finding these unique solutions in the world today. It's not silo world solutions anymore. It's this integration of amazing technologies.
Absolutely. And we received a comment from Tamiko saying that she's excited about the permutations on the technology and that we will be saving a lot of birds. Coming back to the previous question, or the previous question we were discussing, I see that we got an invitation from Alexander Matambo. He is from the Africa Drone and Data Academy in Malawi. And he let us know that there are testing beds in Malawi, and we're welcome to develop and test in Malawi. And Crystal Crail also let us know that the Council for Geoscience is working alongside UNICEF to establish drone corridors in Southern Africa. So that will be very exciting for Keith and Ian if they want to come and test on Africa or on the continent. And we had another comment here from someone that stated that they're excited that drones are being used on the coast already in Southern Africa. Here we go. Francois Barwise said that Debbie hit the nail on the head, and drones are already being used for security, and drones are being used at the coast to spot people in distress, people drowning, and sharks, etc. So that is very interesting, Debbie, and I look forward to see what will come from that in the future. And if you don't mind, Debbie, someone has asked for your email address on the chat, so you can just pop it there.
Sure, no problem.
We'll be moving on with the questions. Our third question for our last but not least panelists. We're talking to Zukile Makalali, who is the CEO and founder of Natam. Zukile, you were one of the very first township businesses in South Africa that invested early in the drone industry. And as a young entrepreneur, you can speak to other entrepreneurs and advise on what you think is needed to develop a successful business in the future. And where do you see the biggest opportunities for other young people and other young entrepreneurs in the future of South Africa and beyond?
Thanks, Paulo. I think just like many young entrepreneurs, the first thing we do is just jump into an industry and hope for the best. And I think with us, we really learned early on that the aviation industry is not the same, but technology is moving such a rapid pace that we actually have to innovate alongside with the regulators. I think we're fortunate that when we got into industry, it was still small. We jumped in, we got our RPLs, we got our drones, but we found out that actually need that ROC. And because this industry is so collaborative, it enabled us to actually partner with other ROC holders in order to continue operating. And we were part of the first drone accelerator in Goleni, I think with that collaboration, it allows us to really see a better view of the entire industry, where software becomes almost the integral part of the industry as well. As David said as well, also including things like computer vision and machine learning and data science. I think the future of drones really looks toward collaboration. I think that's the first part. And then also including software and AI as the main service offering for the growth of the industry. Because there's a question that came about, how can you use drones with the insurers? A good example is that a drone flying over a building on its own is great, but a drone with a smart camera and smart technology, where we can actually identify cracks, identify issues on the building, allows insurers to actually immediately know that they can quantify the cost to repair or maintain that building faster. So I think for any young entrepreneurs, really the avenue is partnership, but not to only rely on just drone flying, but look at other innovations such as software, AI, data labeling. You know, there's a quote by one of the investors in the US. He says, software is in the world, but at the current stage, what we see is that software is still in the world, but drones are filling the sky. And the collaboration of the two is really crucial for future innovation.
That's very interesting. I assume you also mean smart partnerships. It doesn't help you just partner with someone that doesn't have the same vision with you. And you need to then obviously educate everyone from grassroots all the way up to the regulators and the government. Thank you very much, Ezekiel. That was very insightful. I would like to, at this point, quickly ask a few questions that we received during our presentation. We had one from Tseko Shaba. He asked if there are any training institutes in South Africa, and I believe, Tseko, your question has been answered in the chat. You can find a list of accredited institutions there. Thank you. Then we had another one from, no, I believe that's it. We don't have any other questions. Yeah, the questions have all been answered. If there are any other questions, feel free to post them now so that we can ask the panelists and they can weigh in. If not, I'd like to give each panelist 30 seconds to a minute to just give your closing remarks and any final thoughts that you may have on today's talk. I think let's start with Keith for that one. Keith?
Thanks, Paulo. You put me on the spot.
Apologies.
I usually go with ladies first, but yeah. So it's really exciting. These are exciting times to see that everybody's gathering around to actually starting to have these conversations. They are much needed, and we need to build onto these conversations. It's good and well to talk about them, but we need to then convert the talks into tangibilities. And that's the crux of it, right? And lastly, thank you again to everybody, and thank you to AIfE for giving me the platform to then just come and give a talk with regards to UTM, which is very close to my heart. Thanks, Paulo.
Thank you so much, Keith. I believe now we'll move on to Ian. Ian, any final words, any thoughts?
Sure, yeah, well, I think that there's 3 or 4 very brief things. Keep an open mind. So we're still discovering new ideas to use drones. So if you have a good idea, don't be afraid to test it out or ask people. I think helping each other is very, very important, and don't be afraid to ask for help. So, you know, if you've got a colleague on the other side of the continent, dig them out, give them some advice, and then, you know, in return, ask for some back. Take controlled risks. So I'm not saying run out and do stupid things, but map out risk-based how aviation has been operating up to now. But don't be afraid to do those things. I know you might lose a craft, but you're going to learn from that. And then the most important thing is value your time. Don't be doing jobs for people going, oh, I'll do this for free to get you know, my name out there. Even if you're doing a €500 or $500 job for €100, send them an invoice for 500 with the discounts. Show them what the value of that is, so that when you come to a later date, and measure your time. All these young people and older people are sitting down and they're spending all this time to learn all this. Don't give that away for free. So thanks very much for having me today. I hope it was useful.
Absolutely. I'm reminded of a quote that once said, know your value and then add tax. So if you know your value, don't sell yourself short. Thank you so much, Ian. Next up, we would like to have a few final words from Dr. Debbie Hewitt.
Thanks. So this space is really just exploding, and I think it's very, very hard for legislation to keep up with the technology that we're seeing. And I think it speaks to a question that was posted earlier in the chat as to potentially one of the greatest barriers in this industry is just for legislation to keep up to date with this massive explosion in the industry. And then just also to talk to a comment that Tamiko made about drones and birds. With the number of drones increasing, we really are having quite an impact on wildlife. I've given a couple of presentations on that. But be mindful of the space that you're flying in, because we are impacting birds, it's their airspace, and wildlife on the ground. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Debbie. I was very interested in the use of drone technology in conservation. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and there's so much that can still be done. Next up, we'd like to hear a few final thoughts from Zukile. Zukile, you're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. I think my closing remarks really collaboration, partnered with a lot of innovation. I think the young guys or young entrepreneurs coming up, they can look to companies like Robotics, where the main aim, they were actually innovating without actually flying the drones. So they innovated, they partnered with other RC holders, and they're one of the biggest drone South African drone companies. So I think, yeah, anyone out there looking to join the industry, just look for great partners, and then just consider the innovation as part of your value add.
Absolutely. The right partners will always get you in the right direction. So thank you so much, Zukile. And last but certainly not least, the most informative and well-versed person I know in this industry, I'd like to hear some final thoughts from the Tamiko Shea.
Yes, and before I jump in, Paulo, I see someone's got their hand up. Seiko, is your hand still up? Or has that disappeared now? Just want to make sure that everyone feels heard here. Seiko, please pop us something in the chat and we'll come back to you on an individual basis. I just want to first say thank you to Paulo, thank you to Keith, Ian, Debbie, and Zukile. I think you all have phenomenal information and knowledge of the industry. I just want to address one thing that Debbie said about legislation. Debbie, no government will ever keep up with the speed of technology. And I think, let's be honest, we have to create strategic frameworks that allow the tech to develop and not get held back by the legislation. And you'll see in our chapter 2 on our publication, we talk about the importance of government creating strategic frameworks. And there are some frameworks on the table right now that do make some allowance for this, with a risk-based approach, which is what Ian was talking about. Europe is implementing a risk-based approach rather than tying it to specific tech. And I think that's, like I said, everything is evolving. If you said to me, how much did I know about what it was a UAV 6 months ago? I've been in aviation a long time, but no. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who participated today. Thank you for everyone who attended. And Paulo, I sign off to you, and thank you, Nolene and Poe behind the scenes, and Vinny and my team who've been stellar. Without them, this never would have existed. Please, just one request from our side, when you download the study, please don't just share it. We did self-fund this study. So we ask that we just ask every single person that can to individually go on and register and take the study. But thank you. Amazing audience, great interaction. Thank you, Paulo. I turn over to you.
Thank you, Tamiko, and thank you to everyone that attended today. It has been a very informative session, and Tamiko, you are very right in saying that governments will not keep up with regulations and legislation. A lot of countries are actually also considering a performance-based regulation, and Rwanda happens to be the first country in Africa that has implemented that for all drones, and Tanzania will obviously also follow very, very shortly. And I'm hoping to see positive changes and impact in the use of drone technology in Africa. I believe we're at the forefront of the rest of the world, and this is really a good opportunity for us. For that will conclude today's session. I would like to thank all the panelists and speakers today, the technical team behind the scenes that make everything flow smoothly. Nolene, Paul, Vinny, and Andy, thank you so much. If anyone has any other questions or any other details I'd like to exchange, they can just pop it in the chat now. They can follow our AIfE LinkedIn page for more information on when the next webinar will be happening. I think that's it for everybody. We are actually ahead of schedule, which is lovely. So have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we get a prize for finishing early.
So too.
If we were in aviation, we would get awards.
You're on a Ryanair flight, they'll put on a little tune that says we landed on time.
No, we finished early. We get extra brownie points. Hey, Keith? Okay.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.